it is not as fierce.
18 years as the head coach at North Carolina, a decade of being the assistant under Dean Smith. So you had a lot of up-close interaction to Roy Williams. Do you have any favorite stories or memories you can tell us about the former Tar Heel head coach?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that, and I was thinking, Roy is what you see is what you get. And so what I've seen of Roy Williams is what everybody has seen. His crying after tough losses, his dancing in the locker rooms. He's one of the funniest guys ever. He's got tremendous personality. You can see why that he, as an unknown assistant, James Jordan and the Jordan family really took to him. And Roy built James Jordan, his wife Dolores, or they built Roy a stove. What do you call it? I'm from the north, so I don't remember. You put a wood stove, I guess it's called.
Oh, okay.
So Roy, he was only making $2,700 a year in those days as an assistant coach. He'd keep his house warm. That's the kind of relationship he had. But I was thinking, I will tell you this. This is a sort of unrelated basketball, but when he was making $2,700 a year, Eddie Fogler, who was still one of my best friends in the world, and a partner when we started Four Corners Restaurant back in 1980 in Chapel Hill, Eddie, Roy, and I and our wives went to Farrington House for dinner. We had promised our wives we were going to do that, and so we went out there. And it turned out that dinner coincided with Maryland was on TV in one of the big ACC games of the season. I think it was, around 1980, 81, or something like that. But we sat down at the restaurant and we started talking so much about that game and kind of making our wives feel bad that they made us miss the game. And Eddie looked at me and I looked at Roy and I said, okay. I said, I'm leaving. So I got up and I went, I didn't live very far away. So I drove, picked up my portable TV, brought it back to the restaurant, put it on the table. And we all watched this Maryland game at dinner that night. And, the wives were happy because we weren't complaining about missing the game. But that's the kind of stuff that we did back then when every game seemed to be so important,
So now we move on. We got a new era of Carolina basketball being ushered in with the hire of Hubert Davis. We know that he's not going to have any problem winning over the media, but after his introductory press conference where you saw a level of emotion that we saw for 18 years under Roy Williams, did North Carolina get the right guy?
Yeah, great question. And you have to qualify that by saying when you consider UNC's alternatives, Hubie was definitely the best choice. First of all, I was there at the press conference, and when Roy said, I've talked to the chancellor and I've talked to the athletic director, and I've told him that I want to be very involved in the direction of this program. Mm-hmm. As soon as he said that, I said to myself, well, it's staying in-house, because up to that point, Bubba Cunningham's not the Carolina guy. He's done a great job. He's a wonderful athletic director. He's been there for about 10 years. But he had the opportunity to go make a career-defining, or try to make a career-defining hire. But Roy's comment, and then the chancellor, Bubba Cunningham. If the chancellor and the Hall of Fame basketball coach wanted it one way, he would have a very hard time going against that. And when you look at the alternatives, you can't go get a Brad Stevens in the middle of the basketball season. Carolina, one of the reasons Roy resigned is right when he did, and as quickly as he did, right on April 1st, because he made a decision, they wanted to get that on the books, and then they wanted to go find his replacement right away so they could put that program back together with the transfer portal and all the fluid nature of the program. So you can't get an NBA coach worth of salt at that time. And then the other question is, any other sitting head coach, North Carolina is still one of the top 5 programs in the country and one of the 2 blue bloods, but any other sitting coach who you would consider he would want to know, who do we have coming back? Who am I going to coach next year? And no one could answer that question the first week in April because of the Walker Kessler thing,
right.
Because of Baycott turns out test in the NBA. We still don't know a situation with other transfers, so no one could answer that. So really, it came down to Hubert Davis and Wes Miller. In my mind, those are the only two guys that would take the job, not sight unseen, because Wes Miller was still very close to the program too, but they knew what the situation was and they could handle it. So under the circumstances, I think they made the best choice. But you have to remember, Carolina went from the Dean Smith era to the Roy Williams era, and who does that? So if anybody at UNC was thinking that it was going to be an easy succession plan here, that's just not the case.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be some challenges that Hubert Davis is going to have to take on, and he's already doing that, trying to fill out his roster. College athletics are changing with, you got name, image, and likeness. You've got the ever-growing transfer portal. What challenges will Hubert Davis encounter in his first season as the new head coach?
Well, it's like anything else. They say that head coaches make suggestions. Assistant coaches make suggestions. Head coaches make decisions. Mm-hmm. So that's what he'll be doing. First of all, running an overall program. Assistant coaches have specific duties in recruiting certain high school players that they're chasing. They have certain responsibilities at practice, the stations during the drills, and they have certain office duties. But when you're the head coach, you oversee it all, and then you add in there the radio and TV requirements, the media, the alumni stuff. So all of that will be outside of what Hubert Davis is used to, and he also has, I think, some tough choices to make about the best style of play for personnel. Now, I know he said in the press conference that he's married to the foundation that he learned under Dean Smith and Roy Williams. But you can't, first of all, you can't play two low post guys if you don't have any outside shooting, because that team becomes the easiest team to defend if you're doing that. So I don't think there'll be major transitions, but I think Hubert he's gonna change his staff up. We already know some of the changes that are going to happen, and he's going to bring in some people probably who are familiar with a different style of play, in case they have to move away more to a 4-round or an open floor game to accommodate their personnel. He's going to have to make those decisions too. The bottom line is that if there was no major transition at all, it would be a lot easier job, and probably one that Roy would have stayed around for, maybe at least one more year. Mm-hmm. So I think Hubert's got a tough job, but he's beloved in the Carolina community, and you have to. At the end of the day, though, with Carolina, if you're the head coach, you have to win games.
Yep.
That's the standard. That's the standard that's been set for 60 years, and Hubert knows that.
Talking with Art Chansky, longtime Carolina basketball historian. You covered Hubert Davis when he played for Dean Smith back in the late 80s and the early 90s. He was a part of two teams that won the ACC regular season and went to the Final Four back in 1991. Ultimately lost to Roy Williams in Kansas and Indianapolis that year. Can you give Tar Heel fans like me that are not old enough to have seen him play, what kind of player Hubert Davis was in Carolina Blue?
Well, we all know the story about Hubert became a Carolina fan when he was 4 years old. His uncle Walter signed with the Tar Heels, so he got used to Chapel Hill and Carolina basketball from a very young age. In 1976, when Dean Smith coached the Olympic team in Montreal to the gold medal, and Carolina had 4 players on that team, Hubert and his father, Hubert Sr., went, and they drove from their home in Virginia to Montreal, and then they drove back after the gold medal, and it was Hubert Sr. and his wife Bobby and Phil Ford and Uncle Walter in the back seat with young Hubert sitting between them or on their laps on that ride back. So that was the one memory he had. So it was always a question. There was no question that that he wanted to go to Carolina. And then, the story about Dean Smith said he wasn't good enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't quick enough, and he should go play at George Mason where he could play, and improve. And he said, I just want a chance, Coach. And so Coach Smith gave him a chance, and I'll never forget running into Bill Guthridge the first day of practice in 1988, October. Back then it always was October 15th, and I ran into Bill Guthridge. Said, Coach, how'd practice go? Any surprises? And he looked at me and he said, Hubert's a lot better than we thought. And I said, after one day, he said, yeah, he's a lot better than we thought. So I don't know what they missed when they watched him in high school. But he was lost as a freshman, like most guys are. I remember the classic 1989 ACC championship game in Atlanta between Duke and Carolina, which to this day is still the most intense sporting event I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Hubert winning the game a couple of times, and guys like Lebo had to move him around, make sure he was in the right spot, because it was a total freak out. I mean, that game was in the old Omni, and it was packed to the gills, and it was when Mike Krzyzewski was trying to take Dean's mantle away from him, and Carolina's feeling like this young whippersnapper was trying to move their coach out to pasture. That's how intense it was. But then, he became a good player as a sophomore. He became a very good reserve as a junior when they went to the Final Four in 1991, and he was the leading scorer in that game with 25 points. And then I think I sent you in the email that picture that we took for the Carolina Court magazine.
Yes.
That we did, where we put a note in the Daily Tar Heel that we were going to take a picture of Hubert in the pit and show up if you wanted to be in the picture. So hundreds of students showed up, and we had these signs with the number 3 printed on them because he was becoming Carolina's all-time three-point shooter. And you saw the picture, hundreds of kids in the background, and you'd be standing in front of it. So that's how popular he was. And I'll just tell you one last thing. I've never seen anything like this before, because I've covered Duke Carolina games since I was with the Daily Tar Heel when I was in school. And the students at Duke were always crazy and very nasty to the opposing team. But in Hubert's last regular season game at Duke, it was Christian Layton's senior day. It was the Duke team that was on the way to winning back-to-back championships. Hubert lit him up with 35 points. He had 6 of 8 threes, and the crazies went crazy over Hubert.
Wow.
And I'd never seen anything like that. They were cheering for Hubert because he was put on a shooting show that day like you've never seen. And Duke won the game, but it was one of the most fun games to watch and to see the Cameron Crazies appreciating a player from another team. And that shows you not only was Hubert a great player and fun to watch, but they knew he was a good person. They do their homework over there. There's nothing about Hubert Davis that they could ridicule in a sign or a cheer or anything like that. They loved him, and Hubert put on a show that they really appreciated.
You mentioned that the standard here at North Carolina is you got to win games, and that's not going to change for Hubert Davis. He has to win. This might be difficult to answer because we just don't know, but what does he have to do to deem this hire successful? Is there a certain amount of wins he's got to reach, certain amount of Final Fours, national titles, ACC titles, or is that just too hard, too complex to answer on April 14th?
No, it's not, really. Because the standard's been set. Every coaching tenure ends. I mean, people thought the Dean Smith tenure would never end, but it ended, and Roy's has ended. But what's left is the standard. The 65-year standard has been set, and you've got to win games. Now, you can win the press conference, which you obviously did, and you can have a kind of a honeymoon year like Roy Williams had in his first year at Kansas when they were on probation and couldn't go to the tournament.
Right.
But over the course of time, you've got to win games, and I think the standard of Carolina, at the very least, you're expected to make the NCAA tournament every year, and in most years, make a significant and a deep run in that tournament. So whoever the coach is, the honeymoon's going to wear off pretty quickly, and you've got to win games. I call it the Bart Starr syndrome. Remember, Bart Starr was the all-pro quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, one of their greatest players ever. And then he made the mistake of becoming the coach of the Green Bay Packers, and they weren't very good when he was the coach. So I think Bart Starr is now remembered as a great player, but not a very good coach. And so with Hubert, he knows that. He knows that as much as anybody. The standard's been set since Frank McGuire's team in 1957 went 32-0 and won the national championship, and then the Dean Smith era, and Bill Guthridge had a great 3 years, and